For a brief moment in Earth's violent history, the oceans were safer than the land.
The land was harsh, dry, and unforgiving, a crucible for predators.
On land, the apex hunters of the Permian ruled with unmatched ferocity.
Freshwater regions hid ambush predators that struck without warning.
Compared to land, the oceans were strangely peaceful.
Life beneath the waves had thinned, but danger was rare compared to the land.
The apex predator of its era, Inostrancevia, ruled without challenge.
Small herbivores relied on burrows and forests for survival. Far from land's chaos, the oceans drifted in quiet isolation. As fire consumed the land, the oceans became a reluctant escape. Trilobites lingered in isolated pockets, the final remnants of an ancient dynasty.
Heavily-armored herbivores stood firm against killers of their age.
Some Permian predators may have wielded venom long before snakes ever existed. For many creatures, water meant survival, even if danger awaited along the way.
Some life showed signs of recovery, brief sparks in a fading world.
Eruptions unlike anything the planet had ever seen were beginning to reshape the Earth. Competition for water turned herbivores into desperate combatants. Even the oceans began to lose their breath as conditions worsened.
Even the night offered no safety on land. As chaos ruled the land, the oceans remained the final refuge. Even the armored giants of the Permian struggled beneath the crushing heat. Cooperation magnified the terror these predators commanded.
For many creatures, the boundary between land and sea became the safest choice.
At smaller scales, the struggle for survival was just as intense.
Down here, the violence of the land felt impossibly distant.
In narrow spaces, escape was almost impossible. For a few hours each day, the water felt like a sanctuary.
Even the top predators found themselves locked in lethal rivalry.
Even the smallest lives played their part in the ocean's fragile balance.
Migration offered hope, but also demanded a heavy price.
Below the twilight zone, life moved at a slower rhythm.
Rubigia, one of the largest gorgonopsids, dominated the southern continents.
Forests offered food, but also concealed hunters.
In the wetlands, apex predators ruled from below. Green life retreated to isolated pockets, battling the rising heat.
Some predators conquered even the cold, expanding across continents. Floating mats formed miniature ecosystems, safe from land's turmoil.
The greatest eruption in Earth's history had begun, and and nothing would survive unchanged.
For a fleeting moment, the ocean became life's last refuge.
Ash began to settle across shorelines, an omen that change had come. When death came, even the small were quick to claim their share. Where rivers met ocean, life clung to mixing zones, oases of movement. Every scar told a hunt, and every hunt honed its lethal perfection. Within reef canyons, life held on in quiet, suspended worlds.
Once locked in, escape was rarely possible. Not all danger came from heat. Cold frontiers were equally unforgiving.
Tide pool worlds offered shelter to the young and vulnerable.
From far inland, the first plumes hinted at a planet-changing event.
The hunt began with a focus, a single unblinking eye that never forgot movement.
Temperature fronts created natural barriers and hunting grounds beneath the waves.
Even plants bore the marks of a world changing rapidly and without mercy.
Predators timed their movements to dusk, when the world's defenses faltered.
Even after disaster, pockets of life would reassert themselves. Where life had once surged, a great quiet settled hain.
In deep, dark trenches, life endured in ways the surface no longer could. As day closed, survivors made for the only sanctuary left, the sea.
The ocean watched back at them, patient and reluctant to give shelter to all. The smallest lives endured in ways that would outlast many giants. For a fleeting epoch, the ocean held a fragile promise of safety, a fragile, fading refuge.
Heat rose in shimmering waves, shaping a desert where only the swift survived.
In deep canyons, life found brief shelter from the dying world. Under cover of night, the smallest scavengers risked everything for a meal. Wetlands hid predators that thrived where land met water. Ash fell like winter snow, masking the land in silence and fear. In hidden waters, light danced where the surface world was failing. Storms grew fierce as the climate spiraled, reshaping every creature's struggle. Even deserts felt the chill as Pangaea's climate lurched between extremes.
In fading reefs, color remained a language of survival.
Even deserts felt the chill as Pangaea's climate lurched between extremes.
In fading reefs, color remained a language of survival.
Whole forests fell silent, leaving only ash and wandering survivors.
Under the rising sun, the land transformed into a graveyard of heat and memory.
The coast became a path of survival, a narrow line between danger and refuge.
As oxygen thinned, the oceans recorded the first signs of collapse.
Paths once crowded with life, now echoed with silence. Patience made the hunter deadlier than speed ever could.
The oceans, once bursting with color, now whispered a quiet warning.
Sometimes the first sign of danger was nothing more than a shadow. Far beyond the horizon, forces were awakening that no creature could escape. Swamps held pockets of life, veiled beneath rising layers of fog. When the land grew hostile, the sea became the last echo of safety. Each sunrise promised relief, yet brought another day of struggle. Within the forests, life clung to the shadows where the heat could not reach.
As volcanic gases thickened the air, survival became a race against breath itself. Predators shaped every movement on the plains, scattering life across the dry earth.
In the open waters, peace lingered where the land had forgotten it. In a land stripped of mercy, even the strong could falter. Beneath the still water, patient hunters waited in perfect silence. Once vibrant territories, now echoed with unanswered calls. Ash storms swept the land, carving away the last traces of stability.
As toxic blooms spread, the oceans began to suffocate from within.
For some, the sea offered one final escape from the turmoil of the land. Even the apex hunters sensed the change, calling into a world that no longer answered. Even the shade, once a refuge, began to vanish. Deep within Pangaea, the land had become a kingdom of dust and danger. Rivers that once carved continents now crumbled into dust.
Here, beneath the surface, life felt untouched by the chaos above.
When darkness fell, the land belonged to the quiet and the deadly. Forests that once crowded the land now lay shattered and still. For a fleeting moment, the horizon promised peace that the land could not. Morning came quietly to places that had once teemed with life. Even in ruin, the smallest lives persisted in their own hidden motions.
Beyond the ridge, fire painted the sky in warnings no creature could ignore.
Perched on high ground, patience became the killer's ally.
Hidden lights played out beneath the waves, signals in a world shrinking above.
The sun became an adversary, baking the world and draining life's edges. For a moment each morning, the sea offered calm the land no longer could. Ambushes were quick, brutal, and often final.
Ash drifted like a pale snow, covering what remained of once green lands. The great fires were visible even from the ocean, a reminder of how connected the planet's fates had become.
Salt flats stretched like a white desert, Lucine. Beautiful, unforgiving, and empty.
In the shallows, oxygen dwindled,
and life fought for every breath.
From high vantage points, the hunters measured the world below with ancient patience. The river's edge became a place of desperate raids for the last fresh pockets. Mirrored waters offered moments of peace in otherwise fractured lands.
What had once been vivid slowly lost its color, a quiet fading across the seas.
A single line of creatures moved like a prayer toward the only refuge left.
The sea's surface reflected a world in grey, beauty tempered by warning.
As the final light faded, the oceans held the echoes of a world transformed.
At first light, survivors gathered where land and sea met. Every track told a story of desperate movement towards safety.
In scattered hollows, the last communities found fragile peace.
Beyond the sea, the planet's wounds still smoked.
Even amid ruin, small lives still found breath and play.
They moved as one, an endless line toward a fragile promise. Food came and went with each tide, a rhythm that bound life. Silence crept back over lands that had once roared with life. Even watchers paused tweaked, the rules of predation changing with the land.
Shorelines became the final gathering places, fragile and fleeting. Seagrass and shallow bays became living fortresses for the small. Hidden geothermal breaths reminded survivors of the world's shifting forces.
The skies, though quieter than before, still carried small life on fragile winds.
In rare moments, different lives reached toward each other in fragile contact. Night gathered them, a brief rest before another uncertain dawn. Older eyes carried the memory of worlds lost and the hope of what remained.
Time, in its patient way, re-sketched the edges of survival.
Even the smallest remnants of the world drifted down, gentle and relentless.
For a sea, fragile.
The great fires would smolder on long after the first escape, but their fury eased with time. As the chaos slowed, pockets of life began to reorganize and reclaim the margins. As the chaos slowed, pockets of life began to reorganize and reclaim the margins.
Care persisted, the same gentle instincts that had carried life through ages. Silent sentinels held the line between what had been and what might yet become.
Where life survived, renewal began in the smallest and slowest ways.
The story did not end here. Evolution is patient, and time would write new chapters. Life persisted, reshaped, and carried on Pearl, always adapting to the new story of Earth.
Bones are records to bead, not endings, but notes in a longer song of life.
One breath, one life, part of a chain that stretched beyond imagining.
The story did not end here. Evolution is patient. The story of Earth is written in lost and gain, and it continues.